Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Tag Talk. My name is Kiley. This is Haley, and this is a little bit of a different episode. It's a little bit of a serious episode. I think it's time for us to have an honest discussion about AEW. Haley's a little apprehensive. but listen, I think there's some, long-standing, you could argue, systemic issues in AEW, and now we're in like their third year. They've had TV for a couple years. I think we need to address them, and by no means is this us hating on AEW.
We give AEW so much money. We love them as a company. Yeah. We love all wrestling companies. We're just
hands off the keyboard before you comment. This is all criticism in good faith and things that we think would make AEW even better than it already is. So now that we're calmed down, let's talk about the Young Bucks.
Okay.
So I have our handy-dandy little show outline here. Mm-hmm. And our first, I guess, point of discussion, should the Young Bucks have been the first AEW World Tag Team Champions over SCU? I know what I think. I want to know what Haley thinks as the resident Young Bucks stan.
I do think that they should have been the inaugural tag champions. I don't mind SCU being the first, and I didn't mind at the time. I do feel like their reign was cut very short. I was hoping that they would get a way longer reign than they did. But I do think that the Bucks should have been the inaugural champions, especially because everybody thought they were going to be, but I understand why they weren't. Being EVPs and kind of wanting to champion tag wrestling with them, not at the forefront of it. But I feel like it would have helped kind of kickstart that for AEW a little bit more. So I think they should have been first.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I did enjoy SCU as the inaugural tag champ, and I especially loved the Jericho Cruise match with Kenny and Hangman when Kenny and Hangman won the belts. I thought that was really well done. And I do think SCU at this time, they were really over and the fans enjoyed them because, it was, all friends wrestling. SCU was a big part of BTE leading up to AEW. So I give SCU their props. But I do think it really pushed the Young Bucks into a lower spot in the card when maybe they shouldn't have been at the time. And, looking forward, their, heel turn where they were super kicking and breaking phones and feuding with FTR. I think it really hindered that. I think if the Young Bucks had been the first AEW World Tag Team Champions and then they had dropped the belts to Kenny and Hangman, I think that the eventual Revolution rematch means a lot more. And I think we could have gotten to the FTR feud in some kind of way, but I don't know. The Young Bucks in AEW is a weird topic of discussion, mainly because it's very stop and go for them when it should have been we're at the top. And then every match they have then means something. They lost to Private Party at the TV debut. And then where's Private Party now? Doing skits with Matt Hardy on BTE.
Yes.
Why didn't that mean anything? Because the Young Bucks were pushed down and then they had to be yanked back up because it was a bad choice. So it's a ripple effect. That one bad choice of the elite putting everyone over. And we could say this about everyone. You could say that about Kenny. You could say about Cody too. It caused a lot of problems. And I think we still see some of those problems.
Yeah. And I feel because the Bucks had said that they didn't want to be champions for, I think, at least until last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember the date. But I also think that was a bad decision. I don't know. I understand not wanting to put themselves over and booking themselves to win with the EVP titles and everything. But sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah, and this doesn't take anything away from SCU, of course. I thought they were great first champs. Back in the day, my sister and I thought that Scorpio Sky was going to be the exalted one. Shout out to Mr. Brody. But yeah, and then SCU just dissolved, and now
the elite where they broke up and could never get back together. Just great. Lovely stuff.
What was that?
Lovely stuff.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on SCU because what? And then they had like a semi reunion, like when Scorpio's with Men of the Year and Frankie's the elite hunter that we never really hunted the elite. He just ran around and did run-ins all the time. Yeah, what a time. But that leads into the second Young Bucks point. Did the second Young Bucks reign, as in their most recent one, feel as important as the first? And to me, the answer is no. I think it's bizarre that we treated the Young Bucks as the Young Bucks, right? Like one of the greatest tag teams of all time. We treated them as transitional champions, regardless of what was happening with the Hardys. You know, Jeff Hardy, his legal troubles. I don't want to get into it. What a weird decision. And then to put the belts on Swerve in Our Glory and forego the Young Bucks FTR. What are we doing?
I feel like if the Hardys were supposed to win that match, they should have just had Jurassic retain, to be honest. Having the Bucks champs for just a couple weeks, and like you said, kind of missing out on that opportunity to do FTR versus the Bucks 3. Not a good choice. Especially with everybody saying that they're ducking FTR. Just bad stuff, man.
Yeah, and you know, the all-out brawl out aside, that big fight. If that hadn't happened, we would have had the elite in the trios division, which means we're still not getting Young Bucks FTR. And yesterday, Dax Harwood tweeted a picture of the AEW World Tag Belt, and he was like, "It's time to get back to work." So presumably, they're going for the tag belts now. But I don't know. I think this for the last, I'd say 6 months, maybe even longer, maybe since Jurassic Express won the belts, the tag division has been in this weird limbo. And I think it's, you know, they're setting it for trios. So a lot of talent got pulled for trios to set up trios, whatever. But it's just like, I don't know. It feels like an afterthought in a company where tag team wrestling, one, the division is stacked. And two, it's always been presented like tag team wrestling is a priority for us. And all this other stuff, and, you know, women's wrestling, we don't care. But like tag team wrestling, that's our thing. And the Young Bucks are a big part of that. And this reign just felt, there was no enthusiasm for me. There was no creativity. And it was very clear that they were transitional champs and they were just going to go right into trios. But Swerve in Our Glory, I feel like, has been done a disservice because of this. And I'm not saying Swerve in Our Glory isn't excellent, because I do think they are. And I think they're really good. But this whole, will they turn on each other? Won't they turn on each other? Like this story, quote unquote story, it's just boring.
Yeah.
And I think they haven't had like a really good feud because tag team wrestling has taken a backseat to trios. Like you can do both, and you can do both really well. But Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed, which we'll talk about the Acclaimed later, that's like their first big meaningful story, their first big meaningful match, and they got booed in Chicago, and they retained. Yeah, and it's Keith Lee. Remember when Keith Lee debuted the pot for him, and now we're getting booed because, you know, the booking of the division is so poor.
And like you said, I feel like too it has a lot to do with the trios division. But when you say you're going to make sure that you champion tag team wrestling and make it mean something, and then we're just having, for really this entire year, it's just felt like an afterthought, like you said, and a lot of the reigns have suffered because of it, and a lot of the teams have suffered because of it, and I hate that. That really sucks.
Yeah, and I understand trios is new, and you have to establish the division, and blah, blah, blah. But Tony Khan has always been someone who's been able to do multiple big stories, especially because their pay-per-views have, well, for the most part, have always been like really big matches, really big stories that were built over a long period of time. But this year, like with the exception of Revolution, I would say the pay-per-views, the build to the pay-per-views has been way less interesting than pay-per-views in the past. And that's not to say the matches haven't been great. I'm trying to carefully phrase this in a way so it doesn't seem like I'm a hater, because I love AEW.
Oh, you know, people are gonna call you that anyway.
Yeah. But I don't know, something about this year. I don't know what happened to Tony Khan. I don't know what's going on backstage, as we find out more stuff about the backstage situation. But tag team wrestling definitely went way down. And this is something I wanted to talk about, and I don't know what Haley thinks about this. But to me, it started with the Inner Circle. And let me explain. The Inner Circle, which, if you don't remember, is Chris Jericho, Santana Ortiz, Sammy Guevara, and for some reason, Jake Hager. Santana and Ortiz debuted. They had a big debut. They took out the Young Bucks. They were, coming into AEW. They were highly anticipated. There was, WWE rumors, AEW rumors, whatever. They got put in the Inner Circle, which, okay, I guess I understand because, attaching them to Chris Jericho can help them get more credibility with a bigger audience than they had an Impact. I'll accept it. But much like Sammy Guevara, we didn't break up the Inner Circle, and I think it really hurt them. So at Double or Nothing 2021, 2021, or maybe it was 2020. No, 2021. It's 2021. We didn't break up the Inner Circle. And, I think this hurt Sammy, but I also think it really hurt Santana Ortiz because they're just Jericho's lackeys. And no matter how hard the fans pushed for them to get not even just, a tag title shot, just like a meaningful tag feud outside of Chris Jericho's feuds, they never got it. And now Santana's injured. I don't know about their personal lives, but there's reports that maybe they don't want to work together anymore. They don't want to be Santana Ortiz. I think this was a major missed opportunity because the big debut, they made a big splash. People were excited. They had great matches with the Young Bucks. And then very, very quickly, they're just fighting Chris Jericho's battles.
Listen, for me, Santana and Ortiz are a team that I felt should have been tag champions. And like you said, they had that big debut. I mean, Tony really could have pushed them to the top of the card and really made, the Inner Circle feel like it kind of meant more than just being, Chris Jericho's thing. But two, I feel like a lot of the tag teams in AEW outside of like FTR and the Bucks, everybody kind of just gets pushed below, and it sucks. And it's really hard for them to kind of rise above, the like conditions, for lack of a better word, that like have been set for tag teams in AEW.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes from the number of tag teams in AEW. There's the tag team division. There's a lot of teams, which isn't a big deal. But the issue is it's always like the same few teams that are in the mix for the tag belts. And then moving into, like, you throw in the Lucha Bros and Jurassic Express and they win the belts, but like their wins aren't, and their reigns aren't booked as well as, as the Young Bucks got, or FTR got. And that's not saying that they're not as good as them. I think that Tony Khan does love these tag teams. I think that he just doesn't care as much because maybe they don't draw as high, or maybe they don't sell as much merch. I don't know. But the reign of the Lucha Bros, to me, they had a great match where they won the belts. They beat the Bucks. I thought it was an excellent match. I thought it was one of my favorite matches, probably in AEW's history. I love that match. And then the Lucha Bros reign just felt like it was not important, which is weird because the Young Bucks were doing stories with the Elite that felt important, but they weren't champs.
This is where my problem with the AEW tag division started. After the Bucks lost, I was like, okay, this is great for the Lucha Bros. I felt like they should have been champs a long time ago too. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? This is going to be great. And I felt like they had a great reign, great matches. But the problem was the booking. And I felt this way for them and Jurassic Express too, but I'll talk about that later. It's just, the booking is just so bad. You can have as many meaningful matches as you want, But if the stories aren't there and you aren't putting them in like meaningful like tag feuds, how are people supposed to get invested when you're not investing in your tag division and your tag teams? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that Tony just loves to have big TV matches. Like, I don't know what his obsession is, but he loves to just throw a big match in a Dynamite main event or a Rampage main event. And a lot of times that's a tag team match, which is fine, but it's like you're really burning through matches and they don't really mean as much because you're not building for a pay-per-view and you're just cycling through weekly TV. And I think that's where AEW has really gotten in a rut. And I said this on Twitter a few weeks back that I felt like AEW was at a low point. And people were like, how could they be at a low point? Like, they're almost hitting 1 million. They're over 1 million views. Like, they're doing $1 million gates, blah, blah, blah. But, like, creatively, and I think backstage, I think they're definitely at a low point. And this isn't an episode to talk about Brawl Out, but listen, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, do we think this was a one-time event? No. This is a culmination of lots of systemic issues in AEW that led to what we saw at All Out. But back to tag team wrestling. And I also feel like we picked things up in the tag team division and we dropped them. Like Private Party's win against the Young Bucks. We picked it up. They had a big celebration and we did nothing with it. And we still haven't gotten payoff. And now the Young Bucks are suspended for God knows how long. So are we ever going to get that? No. I think they're going to be put back with Matt Hardy and then feud with people on Dark for 9 years. And then it's just, and then Jurassic Express is broken up now. So, like, I don't know. I just don't understand the direction of the tag team division unless it's the Young Bucks are at the forefront. Yeah. And I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know what's going on. But the rankings of the tag division feel meaningless.
It is pretty meaningless, yeah.
We have no big stories with the exception of the Acclaimed. And even then, that's a big story because of poor booking.
Yeah.
And it's a big story that we made, the fans made.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, they don't get credit for that.
No.
That was us. So I don't know. I just feel like the unfulfilled reigns of the Lucha Bros and Jurassic Express, and you can argue with me in the comments if you want. But to me, they felt way less important than even SCU felt. I think objectively the number one title reign in AEW in the tag division has been Kenny and Hangman, just because of where that led and the 3 years they've been telling the story now. But I think SCU set a reasonable middle ground standard, and I'm appalled that it's 2022 and we're struggling to meet the standard.
I feel like, and Tony has this problem with every division in this company, but he'll put either a wrestler or, in this case, a tag team at the forefront of it, and unless, like you said, unless that team or that wrestler is involved in a feud or has a storyline, everything else, nothing. It just feels so meaningless. And again, like, how are you supposed to get invested when you don't really care and you're just kind of like throwing stuff on TV or throwing stuff on a pay-per-view, like Swerve in Our Glory and the Acclaimed? I feel like Tony really underestimated how great that match was going to be and how much the fans were going to love that. And again, we've talked about how, you know, they could have called that audible and had the Acclaimed win there, but, you know, hopefully this will set up something for Swerve in Our Glory, having the Acclaimed match, you know?
And I think it's because fans are really clamoring for something new with AEW. I think there's a lot of things, not just the tag division. I think the women's division feels stale. I think the tag division feels stale. The world title picture, I think at this point has to be kind of stale just because. Oh my goodness. How do I say this without rocking the boat? The world title picture has to be the same guys it's always been because you need stability there because CM Punk screwed up twice.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, he did get injured.
And I don't think the foot injury, the original foot injury, is necessarily his fault.
No.
But I think his return is his fault.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even if he wasn't injured this second time, which he had surgery, apparently it's going to be like 8 months, which is a long injury. So get well soon, CM Punk.
Yeah.
Even if that hadn't happened, he would have been gone because of the fight. So I think CM Punk and the world title are just not meant to be. And so
somebody up there is trying to tell him that, and nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening. But I do think this world title, not to get too far off of tag team wrestling, I do think this world title tournament has been interesting. Just because I think the addition of Sammy and Darby is so new, it feels like, because those are TNT title picture guys. And maybe that's a signal that Tony Khan's hearing the fans and that he's going to do new stuff. I don't want to be too optimistic because I thought that leading into Double or Nothing, and it didn't happen. But anyway, back to the Acclaimed. I think fans are really just clamoring for something new, something exciting, and something that doesn't feel outside of AEW. And by that, I mean, I think in 2019 and 2020, AEW really found its identity, and like fans really latched on to certain guys. And then I think moving forward into 2021 and 2022, the Acclaimed were sort of like their homegrown AEW guys, AEW tag team, I should say. And fans really liked them because they're so different and they look so different. And they've been hindered by Bowen's injuries and whatever. But I think fans, it doesn't matter who it is. I think fans just see something that's good and new and they love it. Because Tony Khan, through all his, what he's good at, his strengths, one of his weaknesses is that he does love the same guys and he finds a way to get them in there. He will. So I was really pushing for the Acclaimed, and my entire section at All Out was like super bummed about the Acclaimed. And now they're getting a match at Grand Slam. I think them being crowned at Grand Slam, if they win, Tony, if you're listening, don't screw it up again. You cannot.
No.
But I think they'll get a great pop in New York. I think they're both New York guys. I don't know about Daddy Ass. I don't know where he's from. Or something. I just think it's going to be so good. I think all 4 wrestlers in this match are really talented. Yeah. I just think you have to go with the Acclaimed here. You cannot have Swerve and Our Glory, who have been disjointed, not working well together for months. You cannot have them beat the Acclaimed twice. And if they do, they're doomed. This whole episode, we'll do it again, and it'll just be talking about that.
Just part 2.
Part 2. Angry face emoji. That's what it'll be.
I agree. I think that it is the Acclaimed's time. Mm-hmm. And despite them being over with the fans, I don't think that AEW can afford to screw them over again. As much as I love Swerve and Our Glory, it wouldn't be good for them either. No, I think Swerve and Our Glory, it wouldn't be their fault, of course, because Tony Khan's booking. But I do think that if Swerve and Our Glory wins at Grand Slam, it's going to take a lot for them to recover. Yeah. It's going to take a lot. And I don't know if Tony Khan has that kind of ammunition ready for them. Especially right now with everything else going on. Oh, God.
Listen. Oh, no. And here's, I have so many thoughts going on in my head right now, but here's the other thing. It's Tony Khan got booed on Dynamite. He came up to do his "I'm vacating the titles" announcement. He got booed. People are they're ready to hate Tony Khan. They're right there. They're like, Tony, give me a reason. Give me a reason. And that would be their reason.
Literally,
Tony, he's not in a place to do things the fans don't want. And I think Sammy Guevara being in the world title thing, that's something fans don't want, but I think they're willing to forgive it because Sammy and Darby being in the title picture is cool. And it's interesting. And I love seeing young guys being elevated like that. I think Death Triangle winning the trios belts, that was new. What are we calling him? Two-pack? Are we calling him Two-pack?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. But Two-pack, that's cool. I just feel like the Acclaimed should have won it all out. On pay-per-view, listen, that was my big gripe. And my other big gripe is that it feels like when Tony Khan I feel like a lot of the biggest stories and the most interesting things happening in AEW surround the titles, like you said earlier. And instead of just making like non-title feuds that are interesting, Tony Khan just makes more titles.
He does.
Which, what are we doing? Why? What is it? Mid-Atlantic, all Atlantic.
All Atlantic. Like that was just made for Pac, to be honest.
Yeah, but like now he has 2 belts, and also, if he's trios champ, then he has to be in the United States, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Unless they're just going to hold the belts waiting for the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega.
That's what I think. I'm like,
why? Oh no!
I know. Oh, that sucks. I hate that. Look, not that this is about the trios, but I do think I thought the best friends were gonna win, to be honest.
I did too. I didn't really mind who won.
Yeah.
Because I thought either way it would be good. Because they're both trios that I thought deserved better in the tournament. Mm-hmm. I think, I don't know, maybe Tony knows the Lucha Bros. They get good crowd reactions. Like, he could do a lot with them. And he just was just like, here you go. I don't even know. I mean, I guess you could have the Lucha Bros be on TV without Pac. I don't know. Because I thought the big issue, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone can like let me know in the comments. I thought the big issue with Pac was that he doesn't want to move to the United States. Mm-hmm. And coming from England all the time is a bit of a hassle.
It's true.
But I guess, I don't know. What do you do in this situation?
I don't know. And like maybe it was, like you said, like they're just holding it and waiting for the Bucks and Kenny and the history between, the Lucha Bros and the Bucks, and they knew that they would get a good match out of that and they could set up a story that way. But look,
I don't know. All I'm saying is if CM Punk comes back, which as we're recording, I don't think anybody knows if he's coming back yet. We don't even know if he's suspended, okay, because he's out for 8 months with an injury. Yeah. But if he comes back, I would love to see CM Punk and FTR versus the Elite. And I know that's controversial. And I know it's controversial because people are like, if CM Punk comes back, you have to keep him far away from the Elite because they're going to fight again and blah, blah, blah. I think if CM Punk comes back, which he might not, I don't know. I think that's a really good matchup. And granted, I don't know anything about where the Elite stand with their contracts. And there's rumors or reports, I guess, that the Young Bucks are sending feelers out to WWE. I don't know. I don't want to pretend to know, but I think they'll still be here next year. And I think we could do this matchup and make a lot of money. I think it'd be good. Poor Death Triangle, though, that means that they're the inaugural champs, basically, because the Elite, they were champs for like an hour.
literally an hour, yeah.
For like an hour. That means that they're transitional champs, but they're the first champs, which sucks. But
it does. But I think that with Punk's time off, like the 8-ish months, hopefully, things will cool off and they'll be able to set their differences aside and, at least make some money out of this, or make gold out of, like.
What a disappointing resolution if it just, his 8 months or 9 months, whatever it is for his injury ends and he's just gone. Like, we get no closure to the story.
No. That would suck.
It would be even worse.
Be really good for AEW, too.
Yeah, it'd be even worse if these months pass, whatever, and we just get the Elite who are just not happy. Yeah. And there's no attempts to resolve the issues with CM Punk. And we alluded to this last week, and I want to make it clear. By saying that I think this whole thing is an issue with AEW's like HR system, their lack of structure. I think it's a systemic issue, and I think a lot of it leads back to Tony Khan and his, if we're being honest, poor leadership abilities. But when I say that, I'm not, absolving either CM Punk or the Elite or a steal of what they did. So a lot of people on Twitter were accusing me of that, and I'm not. Like, I fully understand these are grown men, not children, and on a playground led by Tony Khan. Like, I understand. I'm an adult too. I just had to put that out there. But I think the tag division needs the Young Bucks. Like, we're in a weird spot now, especially because, I mean, you could do Acclaimed versus FTR, but like.
But then if you do that match, then I feel like FTR has to win. You know, that can't be their first. That can't be their first feud.
Yeah, and it's like if you do, and then if the Young Bucks come back, like, do you dodge the FTR match again? Because are the Young Bucks going to be heels? I don't think people are going to boo them.
No.
I think people are going to cheer them.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. See, we're in a really like weird place right now.
Like 2022 for AEW, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Like Tony Khan is making a lot of mistakes that he hasn't made before and that are characteristic of like poor bookers. Like if you look at bookers throughout wrestling history, like he's doing a lot of the same things. Where he's like, these are my favorite toys. I have CM Punk, I have Sammy Guevara, I have Chris Jericho, and that's it. Oh, and Jade Cargill.
We love Jade though.
Don't even get me started on the women's division.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. Listen, what are we? All I'm gonna say about the women's division is total reset needed. Everyone, top to bottom, reset. But back to tag. But I guess it kind of relates to the women's division. Like, I want women's tag titles, and I know that's controversial. I know people are like, the division's too small. There's no tag teams good enough. But it's like, there is. Like, we had that great street fight with Ty Mello and Anna Jay and the Bunny and Penelope Ford. And I don't know where the Bunny is. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know. But I would love to run that back. And I would love it even more if we had women's tag titles for that. Yeah. It'd be so good.
It would. I said this on Twitter the other day, but Penelope Ford, to me, is somebody that is super underrated in AEW, and I would love to see her in a title picture. I think it's great. I feel like she's really improved in ring.
Yeah, she really has. And, you know, I think we talked about it some time ago, like her mixed tag with Kip that she did with Kenny and Riho. That was really good.
Real good.
And AEW doesn't have a big emphasis on mixed tag matches. Like, there's been a handful. Like, we had Ruby Soho and Ortiz versus Sammy and Ty. But Sammy and Ty are AAA, like, tag champs. So that's whatever. But I don't know. I think that would be really interesting if we did not like mixed match challenge, but like if we did something fun like that, just maybe on Dark. It doesn't even have to be on AWTV. But I think people really enjoy those matches, and we don't get them. We don't get a lot of women's tag that's meaningful either. It's always like, in this past All Out, the women's four-way, it was like baby faces versus heels, like women's tag. And I do think the division is small, and I think that's a fair critique. But I do think that Tony Khan has the resources and the ability to expand that division, the women's division as a whole, and also the women's tag division, especially if he's just going to keep making men's titles and we're just going to keep cycling men's titles. Like, if that's how you solve a problem, Tony Khan, make a title. Well, make a title here, dog. Like the TBS title is pretty stagnant right now. For reasons, I think they're going to push Jade to 50-0, and I think they're waiting for Chris to come back, whatever. The women's world title, don't even get me started on what's happening there.
Oh, man.
Because that's another story. That's a disaster. But, like, women's tag is something so simple, and it's something that basically I think is the future of women's wrestling for promotions. I think it's quickly becoming a must-have, the way a women's world title is. So I don't know if it's on if it's on his list, if like on his to-do list, make women's tag titles. I don't know, but listen, it'd be so fun because you could have Penelope and the Bunny. You have Ty and Anna Jay. You could have Britt and Rebel/Reba. Everyone's out on injury, but like you have Thunderstorm, which I don't want to get into that, but I think there's a problem there. You have Jade and the Baddies. You could have any combination of them. So like we have people. Just make it fun. Like, why is the women's division so serious all the time?
Well, and too, like, you could do something similar to, like, the trios tournament where we had, like, non-AEW teams come in too, and you could, like, bring in Impact maybe, or the Indies, or anything like that too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that because I think every time AEW does like a crossover or like, a collaboration, it's never about the women. Like they're always an afterthought, which sucks.
Oh, but imagine Chelsea and Deanna.
It'd be so good.
It'd be so good. Yeah.
I would love to see them in a ring with Britt Baker. Like, I don't know how you would figure it out. I don't know what story you would go with, but like if you could make it happen, like that's wrestling history.
Yeah.
That's money. And I think women's tag would give a lot of the talent something meaningful to do and to keep them out of the world title picture, like Britt. Because I think at this point, Britt is so high. Like, her stock has risen so high in the women's division. It's almost impossible to keep her out of the world title picture just because she's the biggest star in the division. And then anyone who wins the title or is in contention for the title feels like second place because it's Britt Baker. Like, she's been the star since the beginning. And I think their solution when Shida was in that spot was just to kick her to dark. And they did it. And, she went to Japan. She did, I think, a TV show in Japan. Mm-hmm. She did some other stuff, but it's like, if we had women's tag, we could just say, Britt, go fight for the tag belts. And then you could cycle her back in. And like, I think having a tag division makes it so much easier to cycle talent instead of just like, here's your title match, and then everyone else is on dark doing 6-woman tags. And it's the same 6-woman tag 30 times in a row. It's like, and then they have a match with Emi Sakura. Okay, and then we're back to 6-woman tags.
And like, there are a lot of great matches on Dark and Dark Elevation for the women. And like, we're not trying to take away from that. But like, some of this could be on TV, And I get it. Like, people will say women's wrestling doesn't draw, or women's wrestling this, women's wrestling that. But look, if you're not going to invest in it, then no one's going to care. But that's a whole other conversation that we could have.
Yeah, people say, well, the only person in the women's division who draws ratings is Britt Baker. That's because it's by design.
Yeah, that's because Tony made it that way.
Made it that way. Listen, and he could easily make it that way with anyone else in the division, because I don't know if you know this, Haley, but wrestling is scripted. And what happens?
I had no idea.
You can make it happen. Like, it doesn't, like, organic or someone getting over organically. Those are like 1 in a million. Like the Yes Movement, people think that's the norm. That's not the norm. People get over by design. Britt Baker got over by design. Darby Allin got over by design.
And I feel like Jade is on track to kind of be that as well for them. So if you can do that with Jade, I mean, she's homegrown in AEW. You could do it with anybody. Come on.
Yeah. And I think the world title picture is definitely trending towards Toni Storm having a longer reign than maybe Thunder Rosa, or, I think they want her to have a Britt Baker-esque reign, is what I'll say. And if that's the case, I think, I don't know. I don't know how, because the division is so small, you can't just feed talent to her endlessly. I mean, you could give her Nyla Rose. That appears to be the standard. But I don't know. I feel like women's tag titles at this point, and maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I am, but I feel like they're a necessity. Like, for the health of the division, you have to have something else outside of the title picture for them to do that isn't on Dark. And people, whenever someone gives this critique, they're always like, well, there's stories happening on Dark. It's not your fault. Like, it's not our fault you don't watch. But it's like, I do. And I don't feel like those feuds mean anything. Like, I think people who argue that Dark and Dark Elevation are equal status to Dynamite and Rampage, you're fooling yourself. They're clearly like third level shows. It's like Dynamite, Rampage, Dark, and Dark Elevation. So having women's tag belts would make stuff so interesting, and I would love to see wrestlers like try to find alliances to go for the tag belts and work through these like real issues that happen in the tag division. Because if you look at the men's division, like there's something very human about tag team wrestling there, and like the stories they tell in the tag division for the most part. 2022 is an anomaly. I don't know. I just feel like the women's division is suffering because they have no outlets. It's like TBS, World, that's it.
Well, and I feel like too, you made a good point about Dark and Dark Elevation. Like, not everybody can, spend those extra hours every week to watch that. And, maybe that seems like a lousy excuse. But at the same time, like, they could almost treat it like an NXT in a way, and how we've said, like, having Raw and SmackDown kind of cycle out of NXT, like, that would be cool. But like seeing maybe some of the belts in AEW kind of cycle through Dark and Dark Elevation, I think would maybe give some more meaning to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not just like, they got stuck on Dark and Dark Elevation again, Because I feel like that's how people kind of look at it.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. And, there's rumored AEW women's show. We don't know what that's going to look like, whatever. But I definitely feel like when people critique WWE, and not turn this into a tribal thing because I really just don't care. When people critique WWE, one of their big things, at least in the past, was like, oh, well, you have Ricochet sitting in catering. But like, objectively, when you push people like Shida onto Dark Elevation, and she has great matches on Dark Elevation, don't start with me there. But that is definitely comparable to not being on WWE TV. I think being on Dark, you get your matches, you get your reps in, like it's good for you as a talent. But I definitely think the crossover between Dark and AEW national TV, it's not there. Like these stories aren't coming over. They're just not. And regardless of, you could come up with a million solutions for this. You could show more Dark clips on AEW TV, whatever. But it's like there's a clear dividing line. And unfortunately, a lot of the women find themselves on the Dark Elevation side instead of the AEW TV side. And I think tag belts would be such a fun way to really go back and forth like that, because women they're not going to get more TV time. No. They could have 30,000 belts. Like everyone could have a belt and it would just be the one belt every week.
That token 9:30 slot or that 8:20-ish spot.
Listen, when they get 8:45, I'm like, let's go. 8:45.
Yeah.
But I think tag belts would be fun because you could have defenses on Rampage, which is where I think they would end up. You could also do them on Dark, and you could like have talent brag about getting all these wins. Just because you already do so many women's tags, you might as well have tag belts. Like make it meaningful. So that's what I think the future of tag wrestling in AEW is going to be. I think we're going to get, or if I was booking, I should say, I would use tag belts.
Yeah. I feel like they're in a tough spot with the introduction of the trios right now. So if Tony is planning on doing women's tag belts, like he said is on his list in the past, probably not going to see it until like next year sometime, or maybe even later, which sucks. But, hopefully we get it sooner than later.
Yeah, and I think there's some big key injuries in the women's division. Chris Statlander, the biggest among them. Layla Hirsch is still out. Red Velvet is still out. So I think the women's division is in, like all of AEW, is in a bad spot.
Yeah.
But I think moving forward with the men's tag, I think we need to focus on all of these quote-unquote homegrown tag teams we have. I think we need to focus on the Acclaimed, Private Party. When Darius Martin comes back, Top Flight, you have to do something with Top Flight.
Butcher and Blade too, where are they?
Yeah, Butcher and Blade. I don't know where they are. I don't know what they're doing. You have Andrade and Roosh. Like, why aren't we doing anything with them? I think personally they should feud, but I don't think that's going to happen. You have that's ROH, but you could also pull in. It's not even Tully Blanchard Enterprises anymore. But you have Khan under contract. You don't do anything with Khan. You have Josh Woods and Tony Nese. You have all these ROH guys who you're not doing anything with. They could sub in for Rampage all the time. Like the Acclaimed wrestling, all these like, big scary guys. Like that'd be a lot of fun. And I don't know if they're going to do it. But I think moving forward with the men's tag, you really, really do need to start focusing on them. Your middle, lower card tag team guys. Varsity Blondes, if they're still kicking around somewhere, you could do something with them.
In the darkness right now.
Yeah, but I think my overall point is, like, you can't just give, how do I say this? You can't just give the belts to the Young Bucks or to FTR just because. Yeah. Like, I feel like if you're going to have them feud with, the Acclaimed, which I do think the Acclaimed are going to win a Grand Slam. If they're going to feud with the Acclaimed, like, you have to do it in a way that keeps the Acclaim up.
Yep.
And the Acclaimed can lose to FTR. I think it makes sense because FTR is way more experienced, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I don't want this to turn into a thing where the fans are clamoring for the Acclaimed and they get squashed by FTR or whoever ends up being. And then they're the new Private Party. I don't want that to happen. And that's not a knock on Private Party. I think Private Party should be booked way better. But that's what I think the future of the men's tag division is. Women's, they need tag belts.
They do.
So, Haley, what are your closing thoughts?
I feel like for the men's division specifically, they kind of rely on the same teams in matches. So I would love to see, like, we were listing off all of these tag teams that really aren't ever on TV. Get them some time. But yeah, I agree that you can't just keep putting the titles on the Bucks or FTR because you know that they'll do it justice and you know that they'll have a good reign and great matches. You need to start building up some of these other teams for sure. And as for the women, yeah, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know.
And I do think going into Full Gear, and I should say after Brawl Out and the issues that have come to the light about the backstage environment in AEW, I do think Tony Khan is in a very, like, sink or swim position in terms of leadership. And I think, or at least I hope, he has enough people near him who will help him swim and will get all these changes that we want to see, and we'll see talent really rise to the occasion. I just think it would be really cool to see, and maybe, hopefully I'm not in the minority on this, to see the Acclaimed with Daddy Ass against Private Party with Matt Hardy in a tag title match and give them a lot of time and really watch them go. Like, that'd be so good.
It would be good.
Tony Khan, if you're watching, hit me up. I'll help you.
You really sold me on the Acclaimed winning it all out, and you're kind of selling me on this too. I kind of love this. Look, maybe you should be the booker.
Listen, I have so many good ideas, and I write them all down, Tony. So
you've got your women's division booked until, like, next
year. I have it on a whiteboard. I'm looking right at it. I have your both titles booked until All Out of 2023.
So great.
If you need it, I got it, dog.
Yeah,
I got you. I even have Statlander coming in right when she's supposed to return from injury. Tony.
There you go.
But to wrap it up, because we're coming up on 50 minutes, I think we said a lot of brutally honest things, but I didn't think we say anything incorrect this episode. I think a lot of the issues we discussed are issues that a lot of fans have felt, especially concerning, like, the Lucha Bros, Santana Ortiz, Jurassic Express, all these tag teams who are not used to their fullest potential because they're not the Young Bucks, they're not FTR, what have you. I think we give a lot of good suggestions for the future, and I think overall AEW is at a crossroads, and I think that's the ultimate conclusion here. I think the honeymoon period is over, and here's where the hard work begins. And I don't know where we go from here. I don't know about CM Punk. I don't know about the Elite. I don't know about Ace Steel. But I think we have enough talent here that we could really carry AEW without them if we had to.
Well, and this past week's Dynamite really proved that,
Yes. I definitely agree. And I think Darby and Sammy being in the world title thingy, I think it proves that Tony Khan is aware that even if the Elite come back, like, they're approaching the end of their careers, he needs to really get this started, like, really push these guys. So The Acclaimed at Grand Slam. If the Acclaimed don't win at Grand Slam, I will come back to this video and I'll comment below a sad face. And I'll just be very sad with you guys in the comments.
Listen, that episode, oh god. Prepare yourselves, guys.
Listen, if you thought me ranting about CM Punk and the Elite was bad last week, if the Acclaimed don't win, the hatred I will have for Tony Khan.
Listen, I'm just going to let her go for 15 minutes. I'm just going to turn my camera off and just let her go.
I'll erase my booking on my whiteboard so Tony can't have it. And I'll have my whiteboard and I'll be like, here's every reason why Tony Khan sucks. That's the conclusion of this episode. Tony Khan sucks. Comment below about that.
Oh, you know we're going to get comments about that, Kiley.
I'm so here for it. Comment below. Let me know how much you think Tony Khan sucks. On a scale from 1 being he sucks to 10 being you wish he would go away forever. Where do you fall?
Let us know.
Let us know. Haley, do your plugs before this becomes a disaster.
Yeah, we need to stop talking before we really get in trouble. You guys can follow me on Twitter right there at @HaleyAnn_ to see everything I'm doing. That's basically it for me, you know.
I got the big plug. Follow me on Twitter at @Fuller_Kiley. I post everything I'm doing there. See us every Sunday at 5 for Tag Talk on Fightful Overbooked. We had like a weird timeline last week because we were both traveling for All Out, so our episode went up on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
But go check that out. We talked about CM Punk. We talked about the Elite. We talked about the Acclaimed. We talked about everything. All Out, Brawl Out. So go watch that. Like this video, comment below, subscribe to Fightful Overbooked. Go check out the other shows on Fightful Overbooked because there's a lot of people doing some new things, some new ideas. So get on board with that. You know, go see what they're doing. Follow us at Romantic Wrestle, Romanticized Wrestling. We're going to get more content on there.
Where we will.
Where we will. I just started a new semester at grad school, so everything's kind of wild, but I promise we will. Here's a picture of Jake something as an apology. Oh, you see my ring light. Oh, Haley has one too. We'll see you guys next week.